This portion of Lost in America, the story of election 2016, is made possible by
Fin Bay Lodge. Nestled in Rivers Inlet, British Columbia, Fin Bay Lodge is the sport fishing adventure you've been waiting for. Log on to finbaylodge.com to book a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
When it comes to buying and selling real estate in San Diego, put your trust in local area experts Koshal Patel and George Verdugo, who have over 20 years of experience and more than $300 million in sales. Click on the link in the description below.
Additional support has been provided by
friends of the Jim Heath channel, like you. Please subscribe to the Jim Heath channel and like this video. Your continued friendship will guarantee future documentaries and features.
Thank you for your support.
Tom Brady's Super Bowl helmet.
Wow.
This is Mike Tyson's belt.
In April 2011, 3 years into the presidency of Barack Obama, Manhattan billionaire Donald Trump, who had spent years firing people on his heavily scripted reality TV show,
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
had become a recognized leader of the birther movement, a loud campaign that questioned whether Obama had actually been born in the United States. Although the claim was widely discredited and viewed by some as blatant racism, Trump, publicly considering his own presidential campaign in 2012, remained unconvinced.
People have birth certificates. He doesn't have a birth certificate. Now, he may have one, but there's something on that birth, maybe religion, maybe it says he's a Muslim. I don't know.
Do you believe he's
I'm
lying?
starting to think that he was not born here.
Because he's black.
Let him show
Has nothing to do with that. I've never heard any white president ask to be shown the birth certificate. When you become a president of the United States of America, you know that he's American. I'm sorry, that's BS.
After a too long delay, the state of Hawaii, where Obama was born in 1961, finally released Obama's original long-form birth certificate just days before the annual White House Correspondents' dinner. Trump and his wife Melania were guests at the dinner, which featured Saturday Night Live comedian Seth Meyers grilling the Apprentice host for his birtherism views.
Donald Trump said recently he has a great relationship with the blacks, though unless the blacks are a family of white people, I bet he's mistaken.
But it was Obama himself, the 44th president of the United States, who was most anxious to respond to the birtherism talk and specifically mock his top nemesis to his face.
Donald Trump is here tonight. Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? All kidding aside, obviously we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice at the steakhouse, the men's cooking team did not impress the judges from Omaha Steaks. And there was a lot of blame to go around, but you, Mr. Trump, recognized that the real problem was a lack of leadership. And so ultimately you didn't blame Little John or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night.
According to longtime friend Roger Stone, Trump never forgot that night, the ridicule from Obama, and the suggestion that any campaign for president he waged would be a joke.
I think that is the night that he resolves to run for president. I think that he is kind of motivated by it. Maybe I'll just run. Maybe I'll show them all.
Later in the year, he announced he wouldn't run against Obama, despite the speculation he would, and he instead endorsed Mitt Romney for the job.
Mitt is tough. He's smart. He's sharp. He's not going to allow bad things to continue to happen to this country that we all love. So, Governor Romney, go out and get him. You can do it.
On the very same day of the White House Correspondents' dinner, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was examining evidence from the CIA that there was a good chance it had discovered the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the attack on America a decade earlier. In an interview I had with then Senator Clinton in 2007, it was clear that the former First Lady, who had moved to New York to run for her first elected office, was deeply disturbed that bin Laden had not yet been brought to justice.
This is a very serious matter. I would never have diverted attention from Afghanistan and the hunt for bin Laden until we'd gotten the job done, and I'd like to see it done now.
Now representing the country around the world, Clinton told President Obama that she strongly supported sending Navy SEALs into Pakistan to hunt down bin Laden, believing the U.S. could not afford to ignore the chance to take off the map one of the world's top terrorists, and that it outweighed any risks.
The United States has the body of Osama bin Laden, that Osama bin Laden has been killed.
For me, satisfaction. I'll be just very honest with you. I mean, I felt like that was absolutely the right thing to have happened.
Following the successful raid by the SEALs on bin Laden's compound and justice served for the nearly 3,000 victims of 9/11, Clinton's popularity soared. A September 2011 Bloomberg News poll found her with a 64% approval rating, the highest of any political figure in the nation.
Tens of thousands packed the streets of Moscow in the biggest anti-government demonstrations Russia has seen for 20 years.
When Russian protests started later that year, Clinton accused the reigning government of electoral fraud and manipulation. The Russian people were tired of rigged elections, sparking some of the biggest protests in Moscow since the 1990s. In response, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin denounced Clinton, accusing her of backing Russian protesters financially and, in fact, precipitating their actions. Clinton had made an enemy, one who would be elected president of Russia the following year. No one could imagine in the fall of 2011 that 5 years later, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton would engage in a battle for the White House that would leave heads spinning and many voters wondering if they were lost in America. To a casual observer, it seemed like 2015 was morning again in America. Inflation was low, interest rates were next to nothing, unemployment was around 5%. On Wall Street, the stock market was again booming. There was a sense, at least on the surface, that America was edging toward that shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan often spoke about.
America can't succeed unless you succeed. That is why I am running for President of the United States.
When former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton confirmed she was running for president in April 2015, a showdown with former Florida Governor Jeb Bush seemed preordained. Only one presidential race since 1980 had been without at least one of these family names.
Our country's on a very bad course, and the question is, what are we going to do about it? The question for me is, what am I going to do about it? And I've decided I'm a candidate for President of the United States of America.
With high name recognition thanks to his dad and brother who had both been president, and 2 terms as governor of Florida under his belt, Jeb Bush began the campaign as the GOP frontrunner. Like the 2 previous nominees, John McCain and Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush had built a reputation as a moderate conservative. He also had a bankroll of about $115 million by mid-2015, hoping to knock out his rivals by the South Carolina primary.
Jeb is the nicest, wisest, most caring, loyal, disciplined. That's good.
The campaign would start nationally with an economy that had significantly improved from the economic crash that Barack Obama inherited from Bush's brother George in January 2009. After significant victories on health care and same-sex marriage, Obama was enjoying a scandal-free second term and a steady approval rating. Everything seemed normal. But beneath the veneer, there was boiling anger.
The American financial system is rocked to its foundation as top Wall Street institutions topple under a mountain of debt.
The financial crash 7 years earlier was the worst since the Great Depression. Unprecedented, historic, and very costly taxpayer bailouts were given to too big to fail Wall Street banks.
That's all.
While Obama had offered Americans hope in his campaigns, the economic recovery had been slow. Wages were flat. And while many blue-collar workers dealt with foreclosures, bankruptcy, and job losses, just 1 top Wall Street banker went to jail for the financial crisis. While many blue-collar workers in states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan had backed Obama in the previous 2 elections, there was growing angst that Hillary Clinton was not a viable option for a 3rd straight Democratic administration.
What was that, a bat?
She was too close to Wall Street.
Was that a bat?
Occupy Wall Street!
This brewing frustration provided an opening on the political left.
Wall Street, it crashes, and people starve, people lose their jobs, things like that. We're very angry at Wall Street.
A champion for those who had occupied Wall Street.
I am proud to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent socialist from Vermont, had touched a raw nerve.
Wall Street cannot continue to be an island unto itself, gambling trillions in risky financial instruments while expecting the public to bail it out. If a bank is too big to fail, that bank is too big to exist.
I do think that right now there are a lot of white working class voters who haven't seen enough progress economically in their own lives.
President Obama recognized heading into the next election that it wasn't just progressive anger with Wall Street fueling American politics.
The really big social earthquake that's happening underneath this, though, is really what's happened to the white working class in the United States. This had been the core of the Democratic Party during the New Deal from the Franklin Roosevelt coalition. They began to vote for Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, but it is a group that has just fallen through the floor in terms of their social standing. So I think many people are aware of the fact that many working class incomes have either stagnated or actually retreated over the past 30 years. For white men, it's really remarkable that they're earning less than their fathers were.
During the Obama presidency alone, the white working class had lost over 6.5 million more jobs than they gained, while job opportunities for minorities had grown. In 2015, according to one survey, 65% of the white working class believed things had gotten worse in America over their lifetime. The same survey found that many believed they faced as much discrimination as the racism leveled against non-whites.
There is huge anger, sustained anger now at the Republican and Democratic establishments in Washington, D.C.
This growing resentment, fear, and anger created an opening for another progressive voice, this one on the political right, a candidate who would unapologetically champion a group that felt that they had been abandoned and forgotten by both Democrats and establishment Republicans. From the time he glided down the escalator to the basement at Trump Tower in Manhattan, Donald Trump would control the message and tempo of the 2016 presidential campaign. The Donald Trump Show was about to begin.
It's great to be at Trump Tower. It's great to be in a wonderful city, New York. And it's an honor to have everybody here. This is beyond anybody's expectations. There's been no crowd like this.
Actually, Trump's campaign had paid actors $50 apiece to cheer on the billionaire, who at this point had no political base. But his rhetoric, especially on border issues, was about to get the attention of the far right.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people.
Trump's wrath directed at Mexicans, and soon anyone else who happened to make him mad, seemed at odds with the pre-birtherism Trump who had registered as a Democrat during his 50s and early 60s. He had been pro-choice on abortion.
I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion. I hate it. I hate everything it stands for. I cringe when I listen to people debating the subject. But I just believe in choice.
He had endorsed a universal health care plan sounding a lot like socialism.
If you can't take care of your sick in the country, forget it. It's all over. I mean, it's no good. So I'm very liberal when it comes to health care. I believe in universal health care. I believe in whatever it takes to make people well and better.
At one time, he strongly condemned the monarchy of Saudi Arabia.
We ask Saudi Arabia for the use of their minesweepers, which are the best made, the most modern, the best, and they say no. Who are they to tell us no? We're not going to give you our minesweepers. It's ridiculous. They're only there for the sake of us as far as that's concerned. We are protective of Saudi Arabia. They should pay for that.
For years, Trump repeatedly celebrated the inclusion of transgender women in his Miss Universe pageant.
Today, the Miss Universe organization, which is headed by celebrity tycoon Donald Trump, released a statement allowing transgender women to compete in their pageants. For more than 2 weeks, the Miss Universe organization and Mr. Trump made it clear to GLAAD that they were open to making a policy change to include women who are transgender. We appreciate that he and his team responded swiftly and appropriately.
After flirting with running for president in 1988, he again talked about running in 2000 as the Reform Party nominee, dissing both major parties.
I believe I could get the Reform Party nomination. I don't even think it would be that tough. It's going to be Buchanan, and I think Buchanan just blew himself out with the book and his love affair with Adolf Hitler. I mean, you know, how he said this is beyond belief.
And while defending Democrat Bill Clinton during his impeachment,
President Clinton, who I happen to like a lot, but he could have had a great presidency if the whole thing with Monica and Paula Jones, and the worst of all is, Linda Tripp. I mean, this woman, where she came from, I have no idea, but this is the woman from hell.
He later called for the impeachment of Republican George W. Bush.
It just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war. Well, he
war.
lied. He got us into the war with lies.
Green Acres is the place to be.
Trump had been married 3 times, boasted of his affairs, and bankrupted gambling casinos to the tune of billions of dollars. But by 2015, his birtherism views about Obama and his constant attack on various ethnic groups and religions other than Christianity made him a darling to evangelicals, including the 2008 Republican vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin,
Can I call you Joe? Okay.
whose style of politics helped open the door for a Trump run.
Mr. Trump, you're right. Look, back there in the press box. Heads are spinning. Media heads are spinning. This is going to be so much fun. He spent his life with the working man, and he tells us, Joe Sixpacks, he said, I've worked very, very hard, and I've succeeded. Hugely, I've succeeded, he says. And he says, and I want you to succeed too.
Just weeks after the Palin endorsement, Trump unleashed a head-on verbal assault on Senator John McCain, Palin's running mate, and the 2008 GOP presidential nominee. McCain had been a Navy pilot during Vietnam who had been shot down and kept captive in the infamous Hanoi Hilton for 5 years. To most, he was a true American war hero, but not to Trump.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. Do you agree with that? He's a war hero because he was captured.
It was an outrageous attack, especially coming from a man who had avoided service in Vietnam after claiming bone spurs in his heels. The immediate blowback surprised Trump, who had been questioning McCain's heroism for over a decade.
I mean, he was captured.
And he flew combat missions.
Does being captured make you a hero? I don't know. I'm not sure.
McCain, who is facing his own re-election fight in Arizona, held back his own verbal assault.
Donald Trump owe you an apology.
No, I don't think so, but
many establishment Republicans felt this would be the beginning of the end of Trump.
Hey! Austin! Austin's done the Donald! What? Stone Cold just done him! Good God Almighty!
17 Republicans eventually announced in 2015, making for the most crowded field in modern history. In fact, during the early debates, the field had to be cut into 2 debates. The earlier one deemed the happy hour for the lower polling candidates like Lindsey Graham, Rick Santorum, Bobby Jindal, George Pataki, Jim Gilmore, Rick Perry, and Mike Huckabee. The main stage, those candidates polling higher and most likely to win the nomination, generally featured Trump, Bush, Carly Fiorina, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Chris Christie, John Kasich, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Scott Walker. From the start, the Republican debates were punctuated by Trump's name-calling and hectoring. He sucked all of the oxygen off the stage. No one could emerge to challenge him one-on-one. That included Fox News host Megyn Kelly, who aggressively challenged Trump's record with women during the first GOP presidential debate. It was then, according to Trump strategist Steve Bannon, that the Republican Party began its transformation from the optimistic and idealistic Big Tent Party of Ronald Reagan to the fear and anger of Donald Trump.
the mainstream media catapulted him to the #1, and then it was within 30 days we had the Fox News debate when Fox News, when Murdoch and Ailes, or particularly Murdoch and Ailes, being the part of the Bush apparatus, decided they were going to kneecap Donald Trump right out of the box. And that's what Megyn Kelly, they went through his Twitter feed, they went through all the Apprentice tapes, they went through everything and came out and did a hit like the left would do on somebody. And that's when all war broke out.
It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and the moment of truth has arrived. Welcome to the first debate night of the 2016 presidential campaign, live from Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio.
Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump. So, Mr. Trump, to be clear, you're standing on a Republican primary debate.
I fully understand.
The place where the RNC will give the nominee the nod.
I fully understand.
And that experts say an independent run would almost certainly hand the race over to Democrats and likely another Clinton. You can't say tonight that you can make that pledge.
I cannot say. I have to respect the person that if it's not me, the person that wins. If I do win and I'm leading by quite a bit, that's what I want to do. I can totally make that pledge if I'm the nominee.
What's wrong? He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already, hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton or maybe runs as an independent.
Okay.
But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
Establishment Republicans and conservatives were aghast, and Trump made matters worse during a CNN interview following the debate.
She gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions, and you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever, but she was, in my opinion, she was off base.
Fox News President Roger Ailes backed Kelly and demanded Trump make an apology. But apologies and admissions of failure were not part of Trump's style.
Blood coming out of her eyes. And I meant her nose, or her ears, or her mouth. But these people are perverted, and they think it was another location.
Oh, good God.
With the media focused on his controversial statements, a one-time strategist for Trump's Make America Great Again super PAC claimed his campaign team never really expected him to win the nomination.
The thought process of the people within the organization, the people within the campaign was, if we can make him the number 2 man at the end of the primary process, we've done our job. That's our promise to him.
But Trump's brand for 2016 was to be the ultimate outsider in an outsider's year. The fight had become the Trump show, with everyone else in the GOP bit players.
To quote the great political philosopher Ricky Ricardo, Hillary Clinton has some explaining to do.
While Republicans dealt with the Trump issue, the fall of 2015 would be a challenging time for Hillary Clinton. Earlier in the year, news broke that she had used a personal email account to carry out government business as Secretary of State.
When she was Secretary of State, she never had a government account. She exclusively communicated using a personal email account. And now the question is, have all these records been preserved and protected?
Clinton tried to put the matter to rest with a hastily arranged press conference.
When I got to work as Secretary of State, I opted for convenience to use my personal email account, which was allowed by the State Department, because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of 2. Looking back, it would have been better if I simply used a second email account and carried a second phone, but at the time, this didn't seem like an issue.
That appearance flopped.
She did not put this to rest. I think this has just actually exacerbated the process.
She's been very careful about what she said about the nature of classified information. First of all, she said there was no classified information in her messages, and now she's saying this. Listen.
That I am confident that I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time it was sent and received.
And now we've reached this point where her team has now handed over to the Justice Department that server that was in her home, that private server, even as the candidate has laughed off questions about whether or not the hard drive has been wiped of information.
Did you wipe the server? What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no. I don't know how it works digitally at all. I do not have any.
Then, toward the end of 2015, she attempted an apology.
I'm sorry that it has, raised all of these questions. I do take responsibility for having made what is clearly not the best decision.
After the interview, many journalists and Republicans said it raised more questions than she answered.
That the problem that most swing voters have with her is on the trustworthy question.
The Democratic candidates are here and they are ready to debate.
During the first Democratic debate, Clinton's opponents Sanders, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, and Lincoln Chafee all took their shots at the frontrunner, but Sanders kept his focus primarily on Wall Street and refused to attack Clinton over her emails.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who likes to get things done. And I know how to find common ground. And I know how to stand my ground, and I have proved that in every position that I've had.
How can any kind of socialist win a general election in the United States?
Well, we're going to win because first we're going to explain what democratic socialism is. And what democratic socialism is about is saying that it is immoral and wrong that the top 0.1% in this country own almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%.
Is Bernie Sanders tough enough on guns?
No, Not at all. I think that we have to look at the fact that we lose 90 people a day from gun violence. This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
What I can tell Secretary Clinton, that all the shouting in the world is not going to do what I would hope all of us want, and that is keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have those guns and end this horrible violence that we are seeing.
Secretary Clinton, you are going to be testifying before Congress next week about your emails. For the last 8 months, you haven't been able to put this issue behind you. You dismissed it, you joked about it, you called it a mistake. What does that say about your ability to handle far more challenging crises as president?
Well, I've taken responsibility for it. I did say it was a mistake. What I did was allowed by the State Department, but it wasn't the best choice.
Let me say something that may not be great politics, but I think the Secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
You know, enough of the emails. Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you.
But I got to be honest, Governor Chafee, for the record, on the campaign trail, you've said a different thing. You said this is a huge issue. Standing here in front of Secretary Clinton, are you willing to say that to her face?
Absolutely. We have to repair American credibility after we told the world that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which he didn't. So there's an issue of American credibility out there. So anytime someone's running to be our leader and a world leader, which the American president is, credibility is an issue out there with the world. And we have repair work to be done. I think we need someone that has the best in ethical standards as our next president. That's how I feel.
Secretary Clinton, do you want to respond?
No.
Governor O'Malley.
As quickly as they appeared, Chafee, Webb, and O'Malley disappeared, never seriously in contention for the nomination. Even as Sanders laid off one of Clinton's biggest vulnerabilities, his supporters were still challenging her at rallies over issues like climate.
And so I'm wondering, is your answer and your refusal to take leadership on climate change due to the fact that you have contributions from the fossil fuel industry in your campaign?
No. Sorry if the specific answer. Wait just a minute, dear. Wait. Well, no, wait. That's okay. I am all in favor of acting on climate. You know what? I have said in this campaign, I'm going to tell you what I believe. And some people may like it, and some people may not like it.
Will you act on your words and reject fossil fuel money in the future in your campaign?
I do not have. I have money from people who work for fossil fuel companies. I am so sick of the Sanders campaign lying about me. I'm sick of them.
With Clinton struggling, a draft Joe Biden super PAC was launched, encouraging the vice president to enter the race.
But as the Clinton controversy grows, is there an opening now for Vice President Joe Biden to launch a campaign? A new Quinnipiac University survey shows Biden is performing as well or better than Hillary Clinton in hypothetical head-to-head matchups in key swing states.
A 90-second ad aired nationwide using Biden's personal story of trying to overcome tragedies with his family to find redemption.
6 weeks after my election, my whole world was altered forever. I got a phone call. My wife and 3 children were Christmas shopping. Tractor trailer broadsided it and killed my wife and killed my daughter. And they weren't sure that my sons would live. The incredible bond I have with my children is a gift I'm not sure I would have had I not been through what I went through. But by focusing on my sons, I found my redemption. Many people have gone through things like that. My dad's definition of success is when you look at your son and daughter and realize they turned out better than you. And they did. You're on the cusp of some of the most astonishing breakthroughs in the history of mankind. Scientific, technological, socially. But it'll be up to you in this changing world to translate those unprecedented capabilities into a greater measure of happiness and meaning, not just for yourself, for the world around you.
If you can't admire Joe Biden as a person, then it's probably you got a problem. You need to do some self-evaluation, because what's not to like? He's the nicest person I think I've ever met in politics. He is as good a man as God ever created.
Still consumed with grief from his son Beau's recent death, Biden announced in late October he was staying out of the race. As if the campaign wasn't enough, Clinton then endured an 11-hour grilling by the House Benghazi Committee.
The terrorist attacks at our diplomatic compound and later at the CIA post in Benghazi, Libya on September 11th, 2012, took the lives of 4 brave Americans.
In the previous election, Mitt Romney and Republicans had attempted to hold Barack Obama accountable for the 2012 terrorist attack that killed 4 Americans.
What did President Obama do the same day of a terror attack on American citizens? He campaigned in Las Vegas.
And this calls into question the president's whole policy in the Middle East.
Despite repeated attacks before the election, Obama was reelected. Now, 3 years later, Republicans again hope that linking the former Secretary of State to Benghazi would stick with voters.
Well, I think if you look at the statement that I made, I clearly said that it was an attack.
Calling it an attack is like saying the sky's blue. Of course it was an attack.
There are 795 emails in this pile.
I don't know what this line of questioning does to help us get to the bottom of the deaths of 4 Americans.
I'll be happy
help
to tell.
us
I'll be
do
happy
better.
to help you understand that, Madam Secretary.
Did he have your home address?
No, I don't think any ambassador has ever asked me for that.
Did he ever stop by your house?
No, he did not, Congressman.
You had 2 ambassadors that made several requests, and here's basically what happened to their requests. They were torn up.
Well,
They were
that's just
dismissed.
not true, Congressman.
You left your office on the night of the attacks and went to your home in Northwest Washington because you said you knew the next few days were going to be taxing and the department was going to be looking to you. Who else was at your home? Were you alone?
I was alone, yes.
The whole night?
Well, yes, the whole night.
Well, I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm sorry, a little note of levity at 7:15.
So I don't know what we want from you. Do we want to badge you over and over again until you get tired, until we do get the gotcha moment that he's talking about? We're better than that.
I said, what important new things did you learn in this 11-hour hearing?
I think some of Jimmy Jordan's questioning, well, when you say new today, I mean, we knew some of that already.
If anything, the live televised hearing proved to the country that Clinton could withstand a blistering Republican attack. After 2 years of investigation and millions of dollars spent, the GOP-led Benghazi committee later released an 800-page report showing no new evidence of wrongdoing by either the Obama administration or Hillary Clinton.
I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country, to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world.
With Jeb Bush faltering,
please clap.
His fellow Floridian Marco Rubio attempted to take over the establishment lane, but his involvement in the Gang of 8 immigration proposal erased the love affair he once had with the Tea Party movement. John Kasich had a resume that might have secured the nomination for him in earlier years, but like Rubio, his strong support of expanding Medicaid in Ohio ruined his relationship with the far right. Ben Carson, a famed neurosurgeon with a gentle demeanor, rose quickly in the polls during the fall of 2015, but he quickly faltered as the media and other Republicans vetted his positions under a glaring spotlight for the first time. Then, on the far right, Ted Cruz from Texas caught fire. Throughout the fall, he was very complimentary of Trump, assuming his supporters would eventually be his. But backing off attacking Trump early in the primary season proved to be a tactical mistake for Cruz. Scott Walker, once viewed as the future of the Republican Party, read the writing on the wall first and dropped out of the race after the second debate. For her part, Carly Fiorina had a moment of glory attacking Trump during the second debate. She gained a few points in the polls and then quickly lost them. No other GOP candidate ever became a serious threat for the nomination. The 4 remaining GOP debates of 2015 each featured Trump in the center, keeping court as his rivals positioned themselves to be the alternative.
First of all, Rand Paul shouldn't even be on this stage. He's number 11. He's got 1% in the polls, and how he got up here, there's far too many people. Anyway,
I think really there's a sophomore quality that is entertaining about Mr. Trump. But I am worried. I'm very concerned about having him in charge of the nuclear weapons, because I think his response, his visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? Would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
You got, according to to what you said on one of the talk shows, you got Hillary Clinton to go to your wedding because you gave her money. True. Maybe it works for Hillary Clinton. It doesn't work for anybody on this stage.
I was a businessman. I got along with Clinton. I got along with everybody. Yeah. That was my job, to get along with people.
But the simple fact is...
Excuse me, 1 second.
No.
I didn't want to...
Donald, you cannot take...
More energy tonight. I like that. Look.
I was asked the question.
I didn't want... It was my obligation as a businessman to my family, to my company, to my employees, to get along with all politicians. I got along with all of them. And I did a damn good job in doing it. Go ahead.
So, he supports Pelosi. He supports Schumer. He supports Clinton.
Got along with everybody.
And when he asked Florida to have casino gambling, we said no.
Wrong.
We said no, and that's the simple fact.
Don't make things up, Jeff.
And Mr. Trump, we don't need an apprentice in the White House. We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now. He told us all the things we wanted to hear back in 2008. We don't know who you are or where you're going.
Governor Bush, you recently said while discussing Planned Parenthood, quote, "You're not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues." Now, you since said that you misspoke. You didn't mean to say women's health issues, but Donald Trump said that quote, that comment, which Hillary Clinton did seize upon immediately, will haunt you the same way Mitt Romney's 47% video haunted him. Tell Donald Trump why he's wrong.
Well, he's wrong on a lot of things, but on this he's wrong because I'm the most pro-life governor on this stage.
You said you're going to cut 90%. Funding for women's health issues. You said it.
Record.
Except you said it.
In an interview last week in Rolling Stone magazine, Donald Trump said the following about you, quote, "Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that, the face of our next president?" Mr. Trump later said he was talking about your persona, not your appearance. Please feel free to respond what you think about his persona.
You know, it's interesting to me. Mr. Trump said that he heard Mr. Bush very clearly and what Mr. Bush said. I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
Mr. Trump, yes, you've done very well in this campaign so far by promising to build a wall and make another country pay for it. Right. Send 11 million people out of the country. Cut taxes $10 trillion without increasing the deficit. Right. And make Americans better off because your greatness would replace the stupidity and incompetence of others. That's right. Let's be honest. Is this a comic book version of a presidential campaign?
It's not a comic book, and it's not a very nicely asked question the way you say that.
Probably in terms of applying for a job of president, the weakness would be not really seeing myself in that position.
I never forgive. I find it very, very hard to forgive people that deceived me.
That we're just going to be great, or we're going to ship 10 million Americans or 10 million people out of this country, leaving their children here in this country and dividing families. Folks, we got to wake up. We cannot elect somebody that doesn't know how to do the job.
This is the man that was a managing general partner at Lehman Brothers when it went down the tubes and almost took every one of us with us. He was so nice. He was such a nice guy. And he said, oh, I'm never going to attack. But then his poll numbers tanked. That's why he's on the end. And he got nasty.
But Marco, when you signed up for this was a 6-year term. And you should be showing up to work. I mean, literally, the Senate, what is it, like a French work week? You get like 3 days where you have to show up? You can campaign or just resign and let someone else take the job.
Let me tell you, I don't remember you ever complaining about John McCain's vote record. The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you.
Well,
Here's the bottom line. My campaign is going to be about the future of America. It's not going to be about attacking anyone else on this stage.
This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult 2 people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
You know, what we should vet all candidates. I have no problem with being vetted. What I do have a problem with is being lied about.
We will have a wall. The wall will be built. The wall will be successful. And if you think walls don't work, all you have to do is ask Israel.
You know, I can remember as a youngster, you know, my first job working in a laboratory as a lab assistant and multiple other jobs. But I would not have gotten those jobs if someone had to pay me a large amount of money. But what I did gain from those jobs is a tremendous amount of experience.
Come on, folks. We all know you can't pick them up and ship them back across the border. It's a silly argument. It's not an adult argument. It makes no sense.
All I can say is you're lucky in Ohio that you struck oil.
And yes, I do want to rebuild the American military. I know that Rand is a committed isolationist. I'm not. I believe the world is a stronger and a better place when the United States is the strongest military power in the world.
Marco, how is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion expenditure for the federal government that you're not paying for? How is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion in military expenditures? You cannot be a conservative if you're going to keep promoting new programs that you're not going to pay for.
I may respond real quick, very quickly, Senator. We can't even have an economy if we're not safe.
But as far as the Ukraine is concerned, and you could say Syria, as far as Syria, I like if Putin wants to go in. And I got to know him very well because we were both on 60 Minutes. We were stablemates, so we did very well that night.
We're not going to be the world's policeman, but we sure as heck better be the world's leader. There's a huge difference where without us leading, voids are filled. And the idea that it's a good idea for Putin to be in Syria, let ISIS take out Assad, and then Putin will take out ISIS, and that's like a board game. That's like playing Monopoly or something. That's not how the real world works. Just last weekend, a friend asked one of my daughters, do you like politics? And my daughter said, no, I don't.
Our country is out of control. People are pouring across the southern border. I will build a wall. It'll be a great wall. People will not come in unless they come in legally. Drugs will not pour through that wall.
So Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate, and he'd be a chaos president. He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
Mr. Trump.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares.
We have to get rid of all this PC stuff. And people are worried about somebody's going to say that I'm Islamophobic or what have you. This is craziness because we are at war. That's why I asked Congress, go ahead and declare the war. We need to be on a war footing.
You've said you disagree with Mr. Trump's policy. I don't want a cage match. You've tweeted you don't want a cage match, but Republican primary voters deserve to know.
I'm reminded of what FDR's grandfather said. He said, all horse thieves are Democrats, but not all Democrats are horse thieves.
This is not just the most capable, it is the most sophisticated terror threat we have ever faced. We are now at a time when we need more tools, not less tools. And that tool we lost, the metadata program, was a valuable tool that we no longer have at our disposal.
Senator Cruz?
Well, I would note that Marco knows what he's saying isn't true.
but he's the weakest of all the candidates on immigration. He is the one for an open border that is leaving us defenseless. If we want to defend the country, we have to defend against who's coming in. And Marco has more of an allegiance to Chuck Schumer and to the liberals than he does to conservative policy.
If your eyes are glazed over like mine, this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate.
Are you open to closing parts of the internet?
I would certainly be open to closing areas where we are at war with somebody. I sure as hell don't want to let people that want to kill us and kill our nation use our internet. Yes, sir, I am.
Is Donald Trump a serious candidate? The reason I ask this is if you're going to close the internet, realize, America, what that entails. That entails getting rid of the First Amendment.
Talking about ruthless things tonight. Carpet bombing, toughness, war. And people wonder, could you do that? Could you order airstrikes that would kill innocent children?
You should see the eyes of some of those children when I say to them, we're going to have to open your head up and take out this tumor. They're not happy about it, believe me. And they don't like me very much at that point.
There's no way, if Saddam had not had weapons of mass destruction, I would have gone. Because I don't believe that U.S. should be involved directly in civil wars. We will secure the border. We will triple the Border Patrol. We will build a wall that works, and I'll get Donald Trump to pay for it.
I'll build it.
Promising to lead the fight against amnesty.
Support legalizing
he
people that are in this
campaigned
country
promising
illegally.
to lead the fight against
Ladies
amnesty.
and gentlemen, this
exactly
is why
I'm sorry.
Senator Cruz, can you answer that question, please?
Does Ted Cruz rule out ever legalizing people that are in this country illegally now?
Senator Cruz?
I have never supported legalization.
Do you rule it out?
I have never supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization. And let me tell you how you do this. What you do is you enforce the law. What you do is you enforce the law.
Miss Fiorina, please wait your turn. We're going to get to you on this. Go ahead, Senator. You haven't gotten to me. This is why is fed up with the political class.
Mr. Trump, my listeners tell me again and again they're worried that Hillary Clinton will win the White House because you run as an independent. Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me to tracks. I really am.
I can apply.
We need toughness. Honestly, I think Jeb is a very nice person. He's a very nice person, but we need tough people. We need toughness. We need intelligence, and we need tough. Jeb said when they come across the southern border, they come as an act of love.
You said in September 30th that ISIS was not a
am I
not
talking or are you talking, Jeb?
I'm talking right now. I'm talking.
You can go back. You're not talking. You interrupted me,
September 30th,
Jeb. Are you going to apologize, Jeb? No.
This is a tough business to run for president.
I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is real tough. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42 and you're at 3. So far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You know, you started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
This doesn't do a thing to solve the problem.
It sounds more and more what my daughter said that I said in the beginning. All the fighting and arguing is not advancing us.
It will not.
It is not the way we're going to strengthen our country. We will strengthen our country when we come together.
In the fall of 2015, Bernie Sanders caught fire with massive rallies and internet fundraising. Railing against Wall Street greed and linking Clinton firmly to it, Sanders exhibited the passion that Clinton seemed to lack.
It is about a political revolution and transforming America.
Sanders was presenting himself as a progressive superhero for working people on the left in the same way Trump was positioning to represent them on the right. As Sanders' polls ticked up, the leader of the Democratic National Committee, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was facing growing rancor from progressives that she was rigging the primaries for Hillary Clinton. Wasserman Schultz, who had served as the co-chair of Clinton's failed 2008 presidential campaign, denied she was tipping the scale for her close ally. Still, the Sanders campaign believed she was limiting the early primary debate schedule, allowing party cash to be used for Clinton fundraising, and utilizing so-called superdelegates to the nominating convention to cushion Clinton's lead. The claim of a rigged primary election was coming from elected Democrats across the country.
That's what the word is on the street. I mean, it's a rigged game. I mean, it does seem rigged.
It is rigged.
It is. By virtue of the way the system is structured, it's going to be rigged.
What the Democratic National Committee did meant this election was rigged. Yeah, I think it was. It's a pretty powerful charge.
Well, how is she responsible for rigging, in your words, rigging that process? What does that mean?
Well, Steve, I just said, when you start allowing corporate lobbyists to be superdelegates, what does that say about this kind of a democracy?
Wasserman Schultz countered that superdelegates had been around since 1984 and there was nothing rigged about the process.
If you didn't have superdelegates, and keep in mind, we created superdelegates back in 1984. So this is not something that was suddenly developed, at this election cycle. But we do that so that we can make sure we maximize the ability of real people to participate in our convention.
But there was something else very few knew about. In the summer of 2015, the DNC, despite having an incumbent president in the White House, was struggling to make payroll and approaching the equivalent of bankruptcy. The party organization was still deeply in debt from the 2012 campaign, owing millions to banks and vendors, and Barack Obama had not done much to help out the DNC. Faced with this financial reality, in August 2015, Wasserman Schultz signed an agreement with Clinton's campaign to hand over DNC strategic and financial control in exchange for help in raising badly needed cash and investment. The Clinton campaign bailed out the DNC and in exchange effectively took it over.
There was a clear attempt, a pattern of behavior on the part of the leadership of the DNC at that time to tip the scale to Hillary Clinton.
The arrangement exploded into public view the following summer when some 20,000 stolen emails from the DNC computer servers were released. Some emails showed DNC staffers conspiring to sabotage the Sanders campaign.
Thank you all so much.
Now a villain to Sanders delegates, Wasserman Schultz abruptly resigned during the Democratic National Convention.
A bombshell. Party chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigning after WikiLeaks released thousands of internal Democratic National Committee emails suggesting the party favored Clinton over Bernie Sanders.
More importantly for the country, it was also the first time the role of Russian intelligence agencies in disrupting the 2016 campaign became apparent.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, folks. I'm Donald Trump.
If Republicans had hoped the debates would cool Trump's momentum, it was just the opposite. Sensing ratings gold, NBC invited him to again host Saturday Night Live.
Donald Trump.
The following morning, while discussing my new book, Front Row Seat at the Circus, on C-SPAN's live Washington Journal program, I discussed Trump's candidacy with host Steve Scola.
As you watch this, and he was one of half a dozen candidates, and including Gerald Ford, who's made appearances on SNL, is this part of the circus?
Yeah, it takes the circus to a new height because now we're mixing a reality TV guy and kind of a celebrity in his own right with the political arena.
Might have been a precursor. You say on election night 2012, I noticed that Donald Trump had tweeted out, "Congrats to Karl Rove on blowing $400 million this election cycle. Every race that Crossroads GPS ran ads in, the Republicans lost." And you go on to write, could Trump seriously consider running himself in 2016? I chuckled out loud and thought, certainly not. The political circus will never get that weird.
Yeah, that was on the drive home. I saw that tweet and I thought that to myself. I mean, Trump toyed with the idea in 2012. I just never dreamed that he would actually pull the trigger. I think a lot of us never thought that he'd pull the trigger, but he certainly has, and he's done well.
Over 9.3 million viewers tuned in to watch Trump, SNL's highest-rated show in years. Interest in his unconventional campaign had captured the fascination of Americans, and CBS chief Leslie Moonves admitted Trump was, in his words, damn good for corporate media.
Who would have thought that this circus would come to town? But, it may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. That's all I got to say. I've never seen anything like this, and, this is going to be a very good year for us. Sorry, it's a terrible thing to say, but bring it on, Donald. Go ahead. Keep going.
Moonves later claimed he was joking, but the cash from Trump's ratings spoke for itself. Longtime friend and Super Bowl champ Tom Brady then jumped on the Donald's bandwagon.
Because he loves Trump. He loves Trump.
He's been a longtime friend of mine. We've had a lot of fun together, so we'll see what turns out of him as a politician, but he's certainly a great friend, and Nobody supports their friends like Tom Brady or Donald Trump.
After public backlash, Brady claimed he hadn't meant his endorsement to be an endorsement. In Iowa, pop star Katy Perry rallied thousands of supporters for Hillary Clinton in Des Moines.
Make some noise if you roar for Hillary!
Perry's song Roar became the unofficial anthem of the Clinton campaign. With no big-name celebrities in sight, Ted Cruz appeared on local New Hampshire TV reciting lines from the movie The Princess Bride.
One of my favorite scenes is when Wesley, the Dread Private Roberts, is brought in to Billy Crystal, and he's dead. And Billy Crystal explains, he's only mostly dead. and then he pumps him up with the bellows and says, "So, what is it you have that is so worth living for?" He presses on his chest and he goes, "True love."
As Cruz focused on true love,
ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Trump turned his campaign darker, mocking a newspaper reporter who had a chronic condition which affected the movement of his arms. Trump had been using a 2001 article by Serge Kovaleski to back up his widely debunked claims that he had witnessed thousands and thousands of people in New Jersey cheering the fall of the World Trade Center after 9/11.
Where you get into trouble, with all due respect, of course, is when you give a speech and you say things like, "I saw thousands," and there weren't thousands. Now,
but you don't know that there weren't, Bill. Bill, you don't know what there were.
I was here, I was reporting, and believe me, if there were thousands, that would have been reported.
In his article, Kovaleski did mention alleged celebrations, but added they were unverified, and he wrote nothing about TV broadcasts of thousands and thousands of people celebrating, as Trump had falsely claimed. The disagreement with Kovaleski angered Trump so much that at a South Carolina rally, he mocked the reporter's disability.
You got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
There was widespread condemnation of Trump from politicians to pundits to families alike.
Just one other thing, I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk. A guy like that should not be the front-running candidate of our great party. That is not how we win.
I think one of the greatest tests of character is how do you treat people you don't have to be nice to?
This lady's like following me, screaming and yelling at me that if I loved my daughter, I would vote for Trump, and I need to get educated because he didn't mock somebody on purpose.
Of all the outrageous things Trump said during the campaign, a Bloomberg poll a year later found 62% of voters said this was the Trump moment that bothered them most.
You're watching Lost in America, the story of election 2016 on the Jim Heath channel. If you're enjoying it, please hit the like button below and consider giving thanks to promote future documentaries like this one. The Jim Heath channel relies on friends like you and me. Thank you for watching.
Okay, is he still shooting? Oh my God.
In early December 2015, a terror attack in the city of San Bernardino, California, killed 14 Americans and injured 22 in the deadliest attack on U.S. soil since September 11, 2001.
San Bernardino involved 2 killers who were radicalized for quite a long time before their attack.
The shooters, Saeed Rizwan Farouk and his wife Tashfeen Malik, were gunned down just a few miles from the social service center for the disabled where they had attacked.
We are in pursuit of the suspect vehicle. We've got shots fired out the back window.
In response to the attack, Donald Trump, who had focused his campaign on race and immigration, made his most extreme pledge of the campaign yet, a promise to ban all Muslims from entering the United States.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Most of Trump's challengers called his position extreme, but to many conservatives it seemed like common sense. Trump again looked decisive.
Thank you.
As Bernie Sanders and his supporters in Iowa celebrated the new year, the Democratic establishment was faced with the reality that Sanders could upset Clinton in both Iowa and New Hampshire, a reality Vice President Joe Biden acknowledged.
Bernie is speaking to a yearning that is deep and real, and he has credibility on it.
The testiness between Clinton and Sanders on everything from guns to health care to Wall Street increased during their final debates before the Iowa caucus.
Senator Sanders recently said, quote, people should be suspect of candidates who receive large sums of money from Wall Street and then go out and say, trust me, I'm going to really regulate Wall Street. So you've received millions of dollars in contributions and speaking fees from Wall Street companies. How do you convince voters that you're going to level the playing field when you're indebted to some of its biggest players?
I've laid out a very aggressive plan to rein in Wall Street, not just the big banks. That's a part of the problem, and I am going right at them. I've got a comprehensive, tough plan. But I went further than that. We have to go after what's called the shadow banking industry, those hedge funds. Look at what happened in 2008. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank, helped to bring our economy down. So I want to look at the whole problem, and that's why my proposal is much more comprehensive than anything else that's been put forth.
What do you think of her answer?
Not good enough. Here's the story. I mean, let's not be naive about it. Why over her political career has Wall Street been the major campaign contributor to Hillary Clinton? Now, maybe they're dumb and they don't know what they're going to get, but I don't think so.
You said they know what they're going to get.
Look,
what are they going to get?
I have never heard a candidate, never, who has received huge amounts of money from oil, from coal, from Wall Street, from the military-industrial complex. Not one candidate said, these campaign contributions will not influence me. I'm going to be independent. Well, why do they make millions of dollars of campaign contributions?
He has basically used his answer to impugn my integrity. Let's be frank here. Oh, wait a minute, Senator. Not only do I have hundreds of thousands of donors, most of them small, and I'm very proud that for the first time, a majority of my donors are women, 60%. I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
In terms of Wall Street, I respectfully disagree with you, Madam Secretary, in the sense that the issue here is when you have such incredible power and such incredible wealth, when you have Wall Street spending $5 billion over a 10-year period to get deregulated, the only answer that I know is break them up.
If the big banks don't play by the rules, I will break them up.
And
I will also go after executives who are responsible for the decisions that have such bad consequences for our country.
Look, hold on. I don't know, in all due respect to the Secretary, Wall Street play by the rules. Who are we kidding? The business model of Wall Street is fraud. That's what it is.
We want to address the controversy of the last 24 hours right off the top. Senator Sanders, you fired a campaign staffer. You have sued the Democratic National Committee. All of this after your campaign acknowledged that some of your staffers, quote, irresponsibly accessed data from another campaign.
There was a breach because the DNC vendor screwed up. Information came to our campaign. In this case, our staff did the wrong thing. They looked at that information. As soon as we learned that they looked at that information, we fired that person. But what the DNC did arbitrarily, without discussing it with us, is shut off our access to our own information, crippling our campaign. That is an egregious act.
But Senator, you do mention the DNC, the vendor, but you said of your staff that they did the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
So does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Secretary Clinton, he's apologized. How do you react?
I very much appreciate that comment, Bernie. It really
is important that we go forward on this. Now that I think, we've resolved your data, we've agreed on a independent inquiry, we should move on.
And as we await Secretary Clinton backstage here, and we believe Secretary Clinton will be coming around the corner any minute. Similar time frame, raises for CEOs up more than 200%.
Sorry.
Senator Sanders, last week Secretary Clinton called you, quote, a pretty reliable vote for the gun lobby. Right before the debate, you changed your position on immunity from lawsuits for gun manufacturers. Can you tell us why?
Well, I think Secretary Clinton knows that what she says is very disingenuous. I have a D- voting record from the NRA.
I have made it clear, based on Senator Sanders' own record, that he has voted with the NRA, with the gun lobby, numerous times. He voted against the Brady bill 5 times. He voted for what we call the Charleston loophole. He voted for immunity from gun makers and sellers, which the NRA said was the most important piece of gun legislation in 20 years.
What a Medicare for All program does is finally provide in this country health care for every man, woman, and child as a right. Now, the truth is that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Harry Truman, you know what they believed in? They believed that health care should be available to all of our people.
The Democratic Party in the United States worked since Harry Truman to get the Affordable Care Act passed. We finally have a path to universal health care. We've accomplished so much already. I do not want to see the Republicans repeal it, and I don't want to see us start over again with a contentious debate. I want us to defend and build on the Affordable Care Act and improve it.
Across the early caucus and primary states, voters were seeing a lot of political ads. Clinton's campaign, ahead in the national polls, refused to attack her rival directly, while Sanders, trying to gain ground, spent millions linking Clinton to Wall Street.
They're one of the Wall Street banks that triggered the financial meltdown. Goldman Sachs just settled with authorities for their part in the crisis that put 7 million out of work and millions out of their homes. How does Wall Street get away with it? Millions in campaign contributions and speaking fees. Our economy works for Wall Street because it's rigged by Wall Street. And that's the problem. As long as Washington is bought and paid for, we can't build an economy that works for people.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
The time has come to make a choice about which candidate can actually make a difference for you. In a world as complex as this, we need a president as experienced as Hillary, in the Situation Room, at the negotiating table, and always on your side, fighting for children and families. With a real plan to get incomes rising, reduce drug prices, win equal pay for women, and protect Social Security and Medicare for seniors. She'll build on Obamacare, not start over. Break through the gridlock, not add to it. Defend Planned Parenthood, not attack it. Stand up to the gun lobby, not protect it. Lead on foreign policy, not ignore it. We need a president with the experience and determination to get the job done.
I'm running to make a difference, a real difference for you and your families across our country. I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
Our job is not to divide. Our job is to bring people together. If we do not allow them to divide us up by race, by sexual orientation, by gender, by not allowing them to divide us up by whether or not we were born in America or whether we're immigrants, when we stand together as white, black, and Hispanic, and gay, and straight, and woman, and man, when we stand together and demand that this country works for all of us rather than the few, we will transform America, and that is what this campaign is about. It's bringing people together. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. Together.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
Her church
taught her to do all the good you can, for all the people you can, for as long as you can. After law school, she could have joined a high-priced law firm, but instead, she worked to reform juvenile justice in South Carolina, exposed racism in Alabama schools, registered Latino voters in Texas, and provided legal aid to families in Arkansas. Her life's work has been about breaking barriers, and so would her presidency. Which is why for every American who's not being paid what they're worth, who's held back by student debt or a system tilted against them, and there are far too many of you, she understands that our country can't reach its potential unless we all do. Together, a stronger country.
There are two Democratic visions for regulating Wall Street. One says it's okay to take millions from big banks and then tell them what to do. My plan, break up the big banks, close the tax loopholes, and make them pay their fair share. Then we can expand health care to all and provide universal college education. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
The Sanders ads seem to be working. A Quinnipiac poll before the Iowa Caucus showed him leading Clinton by 5 points, but an NBC News poll showed Clinton up by 3. It was clear Iowa was a very tight race.
I think all of us missed, in fact, I think even Bernie would admit that he missed, is the level of frustration and disappointment and even anger at the political establishment and politics as usual. And Bernie has tapped into that to an unbelievable degree.
As Iowa Democrats prepared to vote, the knowledge that a woman could soon be nominated by a major political party for president was not lost on many.
We're going to fight to the very end of this campaign for you and for your families, for fairness, for justice, for the kind of America that every one of you deserves. Thank you, and God bless you.
USA, USA.
A 3-girl group calling themselves the USA Freedom Kids sang at a Florida Trump rally in mid-January 2016. They were an immediate online sensation.
Fire proudly freedom to the world, America, USA.
But later in the year, their manager sued Trump for allegedly violating their contract.
The people, my people are so smart. And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That incredible bond that Trump was developing with his supporters had already knocked out 5 of his rivals before a single vote was cast. Gone were Rick Perry, George Pataki, Bobby Jindal, Scott Walker, and Lindsey Graham. For their part, Walker and Graham had been airing positive TV ads in primary states before they exited the race. While Walker went home to Wisconsin, Graham, who was a close ally of John McCain, endorsed Bush, slashing Trump wherever he was invited.
Donald Trump is the most unelectable Republican I've seen in my lifetime. If you really want to make Hillary Clinton president of the United States, vote for Donald Trump. Dishonest beats crazy.
Trump had spent months mocking the South Carolina senator, at one point giving out Graham's personal cell phone number for the world to call. There were 2 GOP debates in January before the Iowa caucus, one in South Carolina and one in Iowa, which Trump skipped because he was still angry with Fox News and specifically Megyn Kelly.
And they've wanted me there, and they said, how about now? They called a few minutes ago. How about now? Can you come over? I said, hasn't it already started?
I kind of miss Donald Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. We always had such a loving relationship.
Let me say, I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way.
In New Hampshire, I just received the support of 7 out of 8 of the newspapers in that state because they see positive, they see unity.
I've had more 2 a.m. phone calls than everybody here put together, making life and death decisions.
But Ted Cruz has a problem because the question is he a natural-born citizen? And the question was asked to me on Meet the Press. It was asked to me by Chris Wallace this weekend. And I said, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows.
At the South Carolina debate, Trump unleashed on Cruz, who had become his main Iowa competitor. Trump insinuated that Cruz was Canadian and not eligible to be president.
He was actually a citizen of Canada until 15 months ago, which a lot of people don't understand. And that's a big problem.
Cruz's father, Rafael, was born in Cuba, immigrated to the U.S., and married an American from Delaware, Eleanor. The two became steeped in the Canadian oil industry of the early 1970s when she gave birth to Rafael Jr., later known as Ted. The elder Cruz moved the family to Texas in the mid-70s and became a controversial evangelist. Because his mother was an American citizen, most legal scholars agree Ted Cruz is a naturalized citizen and constitutionally eligible to serve as president. Trump knew this, but that didn't stop him.
You know, back in September, my friend Donald said that he had had his lawyers look at this from every which way, and there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have.
NBC Wall Street Journal just came out with a poll. Headline, Trump way up, Cruz going down. I mean, so you can't, they don't like the Wall Street Journal, they don't like NBC, but I like the poll. Very, very fine constitutional attorneys that feel that because he was not born on the land, he cannot run for office. Here's the problem. We're running, he does great. I win. I choose him as my vice presidential candidate, and the Democrats sue because we can't take him along for the ride. I don't like that, okay? The fact is, and if for some reason he beats the rest of the field, and for some, see, they don't like that. They don't like that. But, no, they don't like that he beats the rest of the field because they want me. But if for some reason, Neil, he beats the rest of the field, I already know the Democrats are going to be bringing a suit. You have a big lawsuit over your head while you're running, and if you become the nominee, who the hell knows if you can even serve in office?
Well, listen, I've spent my entire life defending the Constitution before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to be taking legal advice from Donald Trump.
You don't have to. Take it from Lawrence. You don't have to.
What I'll tell you also.
Take it from your professor.
What I will
Take
tell
it from
you
your
also,
own professor.
If this all works out, I'm happy to consider naming you as VP. And so if you happen to be right, you could get the top job at the end of the day.
No, I think if it doesn't... I like that. I like it. I'd consider it. But I think I'll go back to building buildings if it doesn't work out.
Actually, I'd love to get you to build a wall.
I have a feeling it's going to work out, actually.
In Iowa, a Des Moines Register poll showed Trump leading Cruz by 5 points, even as Cruz was conducting what looked at times more like a religious revival tour than a presidential campaign.
Were it not for the transformative love of Jesus Christ, I would have been raised by a single mom without my father in the household. God's blessing has been on America from the very beginning of this nation. Over and over again, when we faced impossible odds, the American people rose to the challenge. This is our fight, and that is why I'm running for President of the United States.
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
There's no one else who's running for President of the United States.
Across the early primary states, voters were seeing hundreds of TV ads for the GOP candidates. Many started off positive, but that didn't last forever.
Jeb has been a very good father, a wonderful son, a hard worker. His heart is big. When push comes to shove, people are going to realize Jeb has real solutions rather than talking about how popular they are, how great they are. He's doing it because he sees a huge need and it's not being filled by anybody. Of all the people running, he seems to be the one who could solve the problems. I think he'll be a great president.
The first 100 days, John Kasich will make them count. Cut taxes to create jobs, freeze regulations, enforce a balanced budget plan, and secure the border. John Kasich always gets it done and leaves no one behind. No excuses, no surrender.
If I get elected president, head out tomorrow and buy a seatbelt because there's going to be so much happening in the first 100 days. It's going to make your head spin and we're going to move America forward.
America, buckle up. John Kasich.
I'm John Kasich, and I approve this message.
Miami tiene su ritmo propio. Esta vez, podemos hacer que uno de los nuestros sea el próximo presidente. Marco Rubio, orgulloso hijo de Miami. Conoce nuestras calles, nuestras comunidades, nuestras pasiones. Comprende nuestros sueños. Cree en nuestro futuro, porque nunca ha olvidado de dónde viene. Depende de nosotros, Miami. Conservative Solutions PAC es responsable por el contenido de este anuncio.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
We will make America great again.
I mean, hey, I lived in New York City and Manhattan all my life, okay? So, my views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa.
They are different, like on abortion.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I am pro-choice in every respect.
And what does Trump think about Iowa?
How stupid are the people of Iowa?
Donald Trump, New York values, not ours.
My views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa.
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
Marco Rubio. He ran for Senate saying he opposed amnesty. Then he flipped and worked with liberal Chuck Schumer to co-author the Path to Citizenship bill. He threatened to vote against it, and then voted for it. He supported his own DREAM Act, and then he abandoned it. Marco Rubio, just another Washington politician we can't trust. Jeb Bush, he's a leader, so you always know where he stands. Right to Rise USA is responsible for the content of this message.
Jeb Bush, after spending millions on his train wreck campaign, he's fallen to throwing mud at Marco Rubio. The truth? Marco Rubio is a recognized expert on national security, fought to strengthen our border and fix a broken immigration system. Because Marco Rubio takes on the establishment and wins. No wonder he's the one Bush and Clinton fear most. Marco Rubio, the next generation of conservative leadership. Now, Conservative Solutions PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Corrupt Marco Rubio has spent years defrauding the people of Florida. As a legislator, he flipped on a key vote after making a quick $200,000 from selling his house to the mother of the bill's lobbyist. He used the Republican Party's credit card to pave his driveway and to live it up in Las Vegas. When he got caught, he said he had used the wrong credit card. But he had used the same Republican Party card for 6 flights between Miami and Tallahassee, then billed the state for the same airline tickets and pocketed the cash until, once again, he got caught. On top of it all, Rubio's been a total no-show in the U.S. Senate, with the worst voting record of all. Marco Rubio, another corrupt, all-talk, no-action politician.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Hypocrite. One bellows malarkey. Donald Trump repeatedly says one thing, does another. The hypocrite says he's champion of American workers, but had his line of Trump ties made in China. Some of the laborers on his palatial D.C. hotel, illegal immigrants. Neither for president. America needs proven, honorable leadership. John Kasich.
New Day for America is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Just one other thing, I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk.
Donald Trump facing new criticism for something he did on the campaign trail last night in South Carolina. He appeared to mock a reporter with a disability.
You got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
I have a 12-year-old son who's handicapped. He has cerebral palsy, and that just made me so angry. And I told my wife I just couldn't let that stand. I had to do something. Make sure Donald Trump wasn't the nominee for the Republican Party.
I believe life is precious. I think life is truly a gift from God, and we're all equal under God's watchful eye. That's what I believe. And when anybody disparages people with disabilities, it sets me off. That's why I called him a jerk. What kind of person would you want to have in the presidency that does that? At what point do we say, enough of this? Let's start solving problems. I'm Jeb Bush, and I approve this message.
I came to hear Donald Trump's business plan for America.
It's really cool to hear him speak the truth. Tells it like it is.
Make America great. As a guy who's an international student, Trump is speaking out the truth.
He wants to make America great, and that's what I want to.
We have a country that we're proud of and that we love and that we're not going to lose. There is an assault on everything that we stand for, and we're going to stop the assault. We will make America great again.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The rhetoric that's divisive coming from Donald Trump's not good for the party or good for the country, really.
As Rand Paul tried to sound alarms about Trump, white evangelicals were beginning to see him as their best champion.
I brought my Bible. Okay?
To many, Trump and evangelicals were as unlikely of an alliance one could imagine in politics. But some religious experts believe the attraction wasn't that difficult to understand.
The more conservative evangelical you are, the more you tend to get attracted to authoritarian figures. That might be preachers, and often it's government leaders. So Trump has that swagger, and he has that ability. He has kind of a charisma for that group of people. And so they found themselves increasingly attracted to him, both frustrated by what was going on in the culture and the economy, and attracted by this man who seemed to be, in a sense, at least their political and social salvation.
At Liberty University, a religious school founded by the late famed televangelist Jerry Falwell, Trump enthusiastically cited 2 Corinthians, a verse that's etched on campus buildings, but that verse comes from 2 Corinthians, not 2.
2 Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game.
Students in the room snickered and laughed, and advisors to Cruz and Rubio were quick to point out the gap on social media. 57% of likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa identified as evangelical or born-again voters. Cruz and Trump were now running neck and neck with them.
Over the last few years, my wife and I have remained in close contact with Donald Trump and with his special counsel who accompanied him here in 2012.
With less than a week to go until the Iowa Caucus, Jerry Falwell Jr., son of the Moral Majority founder, despite vocal opposition from other Christian conservatives, publicly backed Trump for president.
In my opinion, Donald Trump lives a life of loving and helping others, as Jesus taught in the Great Commandment.
Later, Trump's longtime personal fixer Michael Cohen said he had convinced Falwell to make that endorsement. Falwell's backing helped galvanize evangelicals and persuaded many Christians in Iowa and elsewhere concerned about Trump's past behavior to embrace him. February 2016 would be test time for all the candidates. Up first, on the 1st, the Iowa Caucus. Then, on the 9th, the New Hampshire Primary. The candidates surviving those critical contests headed out west to Nevada, where Democrats caucused on the 19th and the Republicans on the 22nd. All of the campaigns then headed to South Carolina, where the Republicans held their critical primary on the 20th and the Democrats on the 27th. The 29 days of this February would determine the fate of both political parties.
The stakes are so high for Iowa and America.
Now, if I lose Iowa, I will never speak to you people again.
After months of campaigning, this is the first presidential contest that counts. It's Iowa's choice.
Fox News can now project that Texas Senator Ted Cruz has won Iowa's Republican presidential caucuses.
Ted Cruz won with 28% of the vote. Donald Trump finished second with 24%, and Marco Rubio nearly snuck past Trump with 23%.
Ted Cruz is the winner. He has done remarkably well beating Donald Trump.
Iowa has sent notice that the Republican nominee and the next president of the United States will not be chosen by the media. Will not be chosen by the Washington establishment, but will be chosen by the most incredible, powerful force where all sovereignty resides in our nation, by we, the people, the American people.
They told me I needed to wait my turn, that I needed to wait in line. But tonight here in Iowa, the people of this great state have sent a very clear message After 7 years of Barack Obama, we are not waiting any longer to take our country back.
As soon as the votes were counted, some commentators rushed to declare Trump dead or at least severely wounded.
I think the big story of the night is that Donald Trump underperformed. He underperformed because he's been a show business candidate, and we were curious to see if the show business would turn into substance, but like a lot of spectacle, it was more flash than substance. And I think we can expect that in the states ahead. There's no reason to think why his supporters would come out to vote anymore in New Hampshire or anywhere else. So I don't know if he'll lose New Hampshire, but I think we can expect some underperformance.
It's going to be very interesting to see how Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters will react to the fact that he's now been beaten. The aura of invincibility, which seemed to surround him everywhere he went, may now be stripped away.
How stupid are the people of Iowa?
For his part, Trump claimed Cruz had cheated by falsely claiming that Ben Carson would soon drop out of the race. Carson's campaign had announced that the candidate was taking some time off and heading to Florida instead of New Hampshire, but Trump ramped up the claim against Cruz with his latest insulting nickname, Lyin' Ted.
He really lies. I mean, I don't like to use that term, but he really lies. And I now know why there's not one U.S. senator that's supporting him. He works with these people, and why everybody considers him to be not a very nice person. What he did to Ben Carson was a disgrace, that he had quit the race. Everyone knew he didn't quit the race, and Cruz knew he didn't quit the race. Then after the election was over, he apologized. A lot of good that does.
Donald Trump guaranteed a victory in Iowa, and then he lost. And he doesn't like that, and his reaction is that he breaks down.
Trump had suffered from his first political defeat. Now the question was whether the GOP establishment could join together and slow down his momentum in New Hampshire.
This could actually call Hillary Clinton the apparent winner in Iowa.
On the Democratic side, after a long, suspenseful night of vote counting, Hillary Clinton barely beat Bernie Sanders in the closest race in the history of the state's Democratic caucuses.
She said, I know what it's like to lose in Iowa, of course referring to 8 years ago, and I know what it's like to win, and winning feels better. So regardless of the fact that it was essentially a split decision in terms of delegates, they both walk away with about the same. She has just a few more delegates. She is claiming a victory.
So as I stand here tonight, breathing a big sigh of relief, thank you, Iowa.
The American people are saying no to a rigged economy.
At least 6 precincts resorted to a coin flip due to a tie. Hillary won the majority.
No one touch it. Some delegates were selected based on a flip of a coin. Not the best way to do democracy.
For Clinton, she had avoided her crushing third-place Iowa showing in 2008. For Sanders, the near draw was big momentum for New Hampshire.
And on the campaign trail, how do you answer that charge that Senator Sanders has made that you're in the pocket of Wall Street or beholden to their interests?
Well, look, anybody who knows me knows I'm not in the pocket of anyone, and anyone who thinks they can influence me certainly doesn't know me.
We look forward to doing well here in New Hampshire. And after that, we're off to Nevada and then South Carolina, where I think we're going to surprise a whole lot of people, just as we did in Iowa.
Clinton left Iowa having had the most enthusiastic supporter of all the candidates thus far.
The Drake University freshman stole the show as he goofed off behind Clinton during her victory speech.
And Sanders arrived in New Hampshire with his supporters sporting shirts with his likeness.
Like his photographer for the campaign told me, he's like, Bernie thinks this shirt is really creepy.
The fifth Democratic debate was held just prior to the New Hampshire primary after the razor-thin result in Iowa. The Granite State had rescued Clinton in their 2008 primary campaign, but polls now showed Sanders leading big. In a much more contentious tone, Clinton accused Sanders of subjecting her to an artful smear, while Sanders suggested she was a captive of America's political establishment.
How can you lead the Democratic Party nationally when you have not been a member of the Democratic Party until very recently?
We'll absolutely admit that Secretary Clinton has the support of far more governors, mayors, members of the House. She has the entire establishment, or almost the entire establishment, behind her.
Which really comes down to, anybody who ever took donations or speaking fees from any interest group has to be bought. And I just absolutely reject that, Senator. And I really don't think these kinds of attacks by insinuation are worthy of you. And enough is enough. If you've got something to say, say it directly. But you will not find that I ever changed a view or a vote because of any donation that I ever received. So I think it's time to end the very artful smear that you and your campaign have been carrying out in recent weeks. And let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about the issues that divide us.
Okay, let's talk
we
about
both
issues.
agree with campaign finance reform.
Let's talk about issues.
I worked hard for McCain-Feingold. I want to reverse Citizens United.
Let's talk about issues.
Let's talk about issues.
Let's talk about issues. All right, let's talk about why in the 1990s Wall Street got deregulated. Did it have anything to do with the fact that Wall Street spent billions of dollars on lobbying and campaign contributions? Well, some people might think, yeah, that had some influence.
I don't think you could find any person in political life today who has been subjected to more attacks and had more money spent against her than I. And I'm proud of that.
Following the debate, Clinton would spend the next few days touring some New Hampshire factories, while Sanders, way ahead in the polls, shot some hoops. With a confused Ben Carson creating the most awkward introductions of the year, Republicans debated in New Hampshire 2 nights after the Democrats. With several candidates facing make-or-break votes, the event was filled with fireworks. The biggest one landed right on top of Marco Rubio and made for the most dramatic and talked-about moment.
Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
First, let's remember something. Every morning when a United States Senator wakes up, they think about what kind of speech can I give or what kind of bill can I drop. Every morning when I wake up, I think about what kind of problem do I need to solve for the people who actually elected me. It's a different experience. It's a much different experience. And the fact is, you have not been involved in a consequential decision where you had to be held accountable. You just simply haven't.
Under Chris Christie's governorship of New Jersey, they've been downgraded 9 times in their credit rating. This country already has a debt problem. We don't need to add to it by electing someone who has experience at running up and destroying the credit rating of a state. But I would add this. Let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is trying to change this country.
You see, everybody, I want the people at home to think about this. That's what Washington, D.C. does. The drive-by shot at the beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then the memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him.
On the eve of the New Hampshire primary, Rubio is being ridiculed for repeating himself repeatedly.
We are not facing a president that doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he is doing. Let's dispel
this video from Democrats and by his Republican rivals.
Exactly what he's doing.
You know who the boy in the bubble is up here, who never answers your questions, who's constantly scripted and controlled because he can't answer your questions.
With robot Rubio reeling from the debate, Trump told his supporters at a rally exactly what he thought about companies that have relocated overseas for more favorable tax rates.
We're not going to let Mexico steal all our businesses. And this has been going on for years. I mean, you look at New Hampshire, this has been going on for years. It's not going to happen anymore, folks. We're going to bring businesses back. We're going to have businesses. We're going to have businesses that used to be in New Hampshire that are now in Mexico come back to New Hampshire, and you can tell them to go themselves.
Trump had often relied on expletives and crude language to spice up his stump speech. A couple days later, on the eve of the primary, Trump repeated an offensive remark from a member in the crowd who shouted that Ted Cruz's position on waterboarding made him less than a man.
They asked Ted Cruz, serious question, well, what do you think of waterboarding? Is it okay? And honestly, I thought he'd say absolutely, and he didn't. He said, well, it's, he's concerned about the answer because some people, she just said a terrible thing. You know what she said? Shout it out, because I don't want to... Okay, you're not allowed to say, and I never expect to hear that from you again. She said, I never expect to hear that from you again. She said he's a pussy. That's terrible. Terrible.
Voters in New Hampshire delivered a resounding rebuke to the political establishment with strong wins for both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will be the winner of the New Hampshire Republican primary. We also project that Bernie Sanders will be the winner of the Democratic primary.
Trump crushed his opponents with 35% of the vote. He won among every ideological group.
And I love the people. And I said, I actually think they like me a lot. And then all of a sudden we started getting numbers in, and everyone said, how come they like Trump so much? So, New Hampshire, I want to thank you. We love you. We're going to be back a lot. We're not going to forget you. You started it. Remember, you started it.
John Kasich pushed aside the other establishment frontrunners and placed second.
Maybe, just maybe, we're turning the page on a dark part of American politics, because tonight, the light overcame the darkness of negative campaigning.
Ted Cruz, third at 12%. Jeb Bush scratched his way ahead of Marco Rubio at 11% to Rubio's 10.5%.
Thank you, New Hampshire.
Voters hungry for a political revolution turned out in large numbers to vote for Bernie Sanders as he crushed Hillary Clinton 60 to 38%.
Because of a huge voter turnout, and I say huge, we won because we harnessed the energy and the excitement that the Democratic Party will need to succeed in November.
With her husband and daughter by her side, Clinton acknowledged she had work to do, but her campaign was confident that the South and West would be more friendly to her.
And I want to say, I still love New Hampshire, and I always will.
Later, and fresh off her double-digit loss in New Hampshire, Clinton and Sanders debated in Milwaukee. The debate turned fiery as Clinton defended the Obama foreign policy, leaving Sanders to level a dangerous attack against the sitting incumbent.
You know, today Senator Sanders said that President Obama failed the presidential leadership test. And this is not the first time that he has criticized President Obama. In the past, he's called him weak. He's called him a disappointment. He wrote a foreword for a book that basically argued voters should have buyer's remorse when it comes to President Obama's leadership and legacy. And I just couldn't disagree more with those kinds of comments. You know, from my perspective, maybe because I understand what President Obama inherited, not only the worst financial crisis, but the antipathy of the Republicans in Congress. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for being a president who got us out of that ditch, put us on firm ground, and has sent us into the future. And
last I heard, we lived in a democratic society. Last I heard, a United States senator had the right to disagree with the president, including a president who has done such an extraordinary job. So I have voiced criticisms. You're right, maybe you haven't. I have. But I think to suggest that I have voiced criticism, this blurb that you talk about, you know what the blurb said? Blurb said that the next president of the United States has got to be aggressive in bringing people in to the political process. That's what I said. That is what I believe.
Calling the president weak, calling him a disappointment, calling several times that he should have a primary opponent when he ran for re-election in 2012. You know, I think that goes further than saying we have our disagreements.
The next contest after the debate brought relief to Clinton's campaign.
CNN projects Hillary Clinton is the winner of the Nevada Democratic Caucuses.
With big support from enthusiastic workers in Las Vegas's big casinos, Clinton defeated Sanders in the Nevada caucus, thwarting his momentum and proving to an anxious Democratic Party that Clinton could assemble a broad coalition to carry her to the general election.
This is your campaign, and it is a campaign to break down every barrier that holds you back.
I believe that on Super Tuesday, we have got an excellent chance to win.
Sanders' weakness among Hispanic and black voters in Nevada made Clinton's campaign much more optimistic as they headed to South Carolina.
What I love about Brother Bernie is that he's a brother of integrity and honesty and decency. That's what we need too.
African Americans made up most of the Democratic primary electorate in South Carolina, and while Sanders attempted outreach to the black vote, it was too little too late.
Hillary Clinton will pick up what our election unit is calling an overwhelming victory in South Carolina, coming off, shall we call it, a comfortable victory in Nevada.
Clinton crushed her rivals 74 to 26%, but Sanders, already in Minnesota, vowed to fight on.
We have to invest in communities of color, reform our broken criminal justice and immigration system. We have to guarantee opportunity, dignity, and justice for every American.
I won't tell you that we didn't get beaten, and beaten very badly yesterday in South Carolina. I congratulate Secretary Clinton on her victory. But, John, I think for us that is about as bad as it's going to get.
On the debate stage, just days before the South Carolina GOP primary, the last stand between the Bush political dynasty and Donald Trump. At stake, the future direction of the Republican Party.
Vladimir Putin, you did at one point say, let Russia take care of ISIS.
Call me a genius. I like him so far, I have to tell you. Let me just tell you this. Jeb is so wrong. Jeb is absolutely so. That's just so you understand. You know what that is? That's Jeb's special interest and lobbyists talking. Look, let me just tell you something. Jeb is so wrong.
We need to create a coalition, Sunni-led coalition, on the ground with our special operators to destroy ISIS and bring about stability. And you can't do that with Assad in power.
We're supporting troops that we don't even know who they are. We're supporting troops that we don't even know who they are.
Trump. All right.
We have no idea who they are.
Gentlemen, I think we're gonna leave that there. I've got a question
from a guy who gets his foreign policy from the shows. This is a guy who thinks that Hillary Clinton was a great negotiator in Iran. We're living in dangerous times.
In New Hampshire.
This is a man who insults his way to the nomination.
24 million.
All right, ladies. All right.
Give me a break.
Gentlemen.
The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. They lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right. Governor Bush.
I could care less about the insults that Donald Trump gives to me. It's blood sport for him. He enjoys it, and I'm glad he's happy about it. But I am sick and tired of him going after my family. My dad is the greatest man alive in my mind. While Donald Trump was building a reality TV show, my brother was building a security apparatus to keep us safe, and I'm proud of what he did. And he's had the gall to go after my mother.
The World Trade Center came down
during your brother's reign.
Remember that.
Hold on.
Let me finish. He's had the gall to go after my mother.
That's not keeping
Look, I
us
won
safe.
the lottery when I was born 63 years ago and looked up and I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
this
be
is
running.
not about
Okay.
my family or his family.
Okay.
This is about the South Carolina families that need someone to be a commander-in-chief that can lead. I'm that person.
I just want to say, at least on behalf of me and my family, I thank God all the time that it was George W. Bush in the White House on 9/11 and not Al Gore. And George W. Bush enforced what the international community refused to do. And again, he kept us safe, and I am forever grateful to what he did for this country.
How did he keep us safe when the World Trade Center came down? The world, I lost hundreds of friends. The World Trade Center came down during the reign of George. He kept us safe. That's not safe. That is not safe, Parker.
I like Donald. He is an amazing entertainer. But his policies for most of his life...
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
For most of his life, his policies have been very, very liberal. That's a matter of principle, and I'll tell you...
You are the single biggest liar. You probably are worse than Jeb Bush. You are the single biggest liar.
The only big question that remained as South Carolina Republicans went to vote was whether the GOP was truly ready to turn the page from the Bush era.
I voted for Donald Trump today because I thought he'd do the most for the country than anybody else, because I figure he didn't do it for the money, he done it because he loved the country.
I'm for Donald Trump. I tell it like it is, and that's who we need in office to get this country straightened out like it should be.
I voted for Donald Trump today, mainly because I'm not a PC type of guy. He says what it is. Sometimes it's not the
best way of saying it. But I think in time, if he makes the presidency, which I hope he does, he'll learn how to be a little bit more relaxed and reserved on his comments.
The answer was a resounding yes. Trump won with 33% of the vote, Rubio climbed to second with 22%, Ted Cruz was third, and no one else, including Jeb Bush, came close.
Yeah, Melania, say something. Go ahead, please.
Just want to say an amazing place, South Carolina. Congratulations to my husband. He was working very hard, and he loves you. We love you. And to be going ahead to Nevada, and we will see what happened. He would be the best president.
Let's have a big win in Nevada. Let's have a big win at the SEC. Let's put this thing away, and let's make America great again. Thank you very much.
The only campaign that has beaten Donald Trump, and the only campaign that can beat Donald Trump, is this campaign.
They don't like liars.
2 days later, on the eve of the Nevada GOP caucus, Trump ripped into Cruz, telling thousands of cheering supporters that the Texas senator was sick and a liar.
Running right now, it's a Cruz ad, something to do with, and a couple of people told me this, that I am backing the federal government to keep the land that's currently owned by the federal government, and we should give that land to everybody and divvy it up or something. I'm saying to myself, well, it's not a subject I know anything about. It's a hell of an ad, but this is a Cruz ad. This guy is sick. There's something wrong with this guy.
85% of Nevada is owned and regulated by the federal government.
Trump was retaliating over a Cruz TV ad that charged that Trump would maintain much of Nevada's land under federal government control.
Washington bureaucrats should be in charge of your own land.
In the end, Trump won big in the Nevada caucus, where he managed to create another controversy by saying that he loved his poorly educated voters.
So we won the evangelicals, we won with young, we won with old, we won with highly educated, we won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
February was coming to a close, and it had knocked out a good chunk of the GOP candidates. Gone were Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, Rand Paul, Chris Christie, Jim Gilmore, Carly Fiorina, and Jeb Bush. Still standing, ready for Super Tuesday, were Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, and John Kasich. February would come to a close on the 29th, a rare extra day in the month where Marco Rubio, deciding to play by Trump's playbook, challenged the billionaire's penis size.
He's always calling me Little Marco. And I don't think that he's taller than me, he's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands?
Oh boy. You can only imagine what Donald Trump's response is going to be.
Coming up in part 2.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward.
A business genius he is not.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
A basket of deplorables.
Grab him by the pussy.
No reasonable prosecutor.
Guy not. Lost in America, the story of election 2016. Part 2, only on the Jim Heath channel.
If you enjoyed the documentary, please give it a thumbs up, and consider supporting more documentaries by pushing the thanks button below. Thank you for watching the Jim Heath channel.
Speak with clarity, 'cause there's too much noise around